You grind for years. You chase the belt. You study. You drill. You fight through injury, doubt, and frustration. And then it finally happens. That shiny new belt gets tied around your waist. And then, unexpectedly, the fire goes out. Because the thing that kept you pushing and showing up is suddenly gone. Or worse, you wonder if it was even worth the trouble. It's what I call the post-belt void. And it hits some people like a freight train. Others just feel a subtle dullness that they can't quite explain. And if you've never felt this way before, it might sound a little bit strange. But if you have, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you're still chasing that next belt, you can't just ask, how do I get it? You need to ask, why do I actually want it? And what comes after? And that's what we're talking about today. If you're feeling lost or strangely detached from the thing you've been chasing for years and years, listen closely and maybe take some notes, because we're going a little bit deeper today. Welcome to the Alchemy of Struggle, baby. This video is inspired by a message I got a few days ago. It's from someone who trained really hard for over 4 years, and she finally earned her blue belt and gained the confidence that she was going after. And she's a classic type A personality, does everything to perfection, including Jiu-Jitsu. But during her Jiu-Jitsu journey over the past 4 years, she matured a bit to the point where perfectionism was no longer a thing for her. So when she got the blue belt, something strange happened. That fire that kept her going just vanished. This is not the blue belt blues. To the contrary, she's actually in a really good place, really content, but the urgency is gone. So this viewer's issue isn't about burnout, injury, or feeling blue. It's about that strange flatness that some people feel right after the thing they worked so hard to achieve finally shows up. For some, it's a competition. For some, it's a belt promotion. And for many, it's healing through real-world trauma that brought them to the mats in the first place. Once they achieve it, they look around and ask themselves, why am I still doing this? And that's the void that I'm talking about. You're still showing up, but the fuel that got you here in the first place just doesn't burn the same way. And you feel yourself drifting, detached, aimless, low on motivation. So the real question becomes, why do you train when there's no gold medal, no big breakthrough, and no status boost waiting for you around the corner? Most white belts and blue belts run on external fuel. Stripes, competitions, belts, external validation from instructors and teammates. But it's like running a generator instead of being wired into the grid. Then you hit the milestone and everything goes quiet. And if you haven't done that internal wiring, nothing turns back on. And this is the part that very few prepare for: cultivating a relationship with training that is not tied to external measurements, but because it's just who you are. I remember years ago, I heard the speaker say something that stuck with me ever since. He asked everyone in the room to look around and identify the people who work out on a regular basis. He pointed out that you don't even have to ask them, because training for them is such a core part of their identity that they can't help but do it. And the results are very obvious. So what's required here isn't another goal. It's a new kind of architecture, a new inner scaffolding for why you train and who you are when you do. But most people never get around to building that layer. Instead, they just bounce from goal to goal, competition to competition, belt and stripe chasing. Or they just float through training like a rudderless boat, drifting aimlessly through turbulent waters. Or they just quit and call it closure. But there is another path. You build that identity layer, and training becomes your anchor instead of your achievement pipeline. So if you train Jiu-Jitsu long enough, you'll hit this question: why am I still doing this? And when it does, you've got 3 paths in front of you. You can quit, and you will feel a sense of relief at first, until that restlessness creeps in again, and it will. Or you can double down, chase a new goal without asking if it's actually worth it. I almost fell into this trap. After my last comp, I had a series of competitions marked on my calendar, even weeks after decided I no longer wanted to compete. But it just felt like it was the next progression. But I couldn't find a good reason to actually do it. Finally, I let go of it and chose the third option. I paused and did the uncomfortable work of reorienting myself. And that third option is where the magic happens. What you're really doing here is recalibrating that inner compass, not based on rank or pressure from teammates or coaches, but based on the kind of man or woman you want to become on the mats long term, and what kind of practice is necessary to sustain it. For me personally, it's going deeper into the mindset and philosophy of martial combat and sharing those insights with others. That's what the Alchemy Project is all about. And that's also why I don't think her email was really about quitting. If she was truly content and said, you know what, I got everything I wanted to get out of this practice, there would have been no need to send an email. She just would have went quietly off into the sunset and been totally satisfied with her decision. But here's what I encounter more often than that. I usually come across people who say something like, oh yeah, I used to train Jiu-Jitsu years ago, and man, I wish I wouldn't have quit. And that's because they quit prematurely without asking and answering this deeper question. So no, I think this stage is about listening. Listening to a part of yourself that knows that this chapter just closed, but also knows that there's still something worth preserving and pursuing. So sometimes when we think we're done, we're really just done with that version of the journey. So maybe for this person, the next phase is about mentoring new white belts and helping them through that early storm. Or maybe it's about exploring martial arts outside of jiu-jitsu. You don't have to justify staying, and you certainly don't have to justify leaving. But whatever you choose, just make sure it's grounded in clarity, not confusion or drift. Because the practice, when chosen with intention, still has so much more to offer. But the sad part is that many people walk away not because they're done, but because no one ever had this conversation with them. So if you're standing at that quiet fork in the road, know this. Maybe it's not time to walk away, but maybe it's time to find a new reason and a new way to train. And if you stick around, you might just discover that the best chapter is still ahead. Now listen, we have to address some elephants in the room. Some folks are going to watch this and say, dude, jiu-jitsu is just a sport. You're taking this esoteric philosophical stuff way too seriously. And to that I say, fair enough. But for some people, it was never just a sport. This particular viewer used jiu-jitsu as a way to work through some real life trauma, rebuild confidence, and rebuild parts of herself that life chipped away. And apparently it worked. So yeah, maybe it's just a hobby or a sport for you. But for others, it's a lifeline. And let's not pretend that it has to mean the same thing for everyone. Now someone else might say, look, if this person wants to quit, what's wrong with that? Why do you care? And leaving might absolutely be the right move. And if someone is as clear about why they're leaving as much as why they started in the first place, then by all means, walk away. Because not everyone wants to be a black belt. And there's more to life than rolling around on the mats with a bunch of sweaty guys. So if you're stuck between what was and what's next, just accept that that space is part of the journey. And if you sit with it long enough, it might show you a version of the path that you never knew was possible. And if you haven't yet seen the video on what everyone gets wrong about the Blue Belt Blues, it'll be linked at the end of this one. And if any of this hit for you, check out some of the free downloads in the description, or join as a member if you want to go a little deeper. And as always, I want to thank the subscribers and the commenters for helping me level up this content. I may not always get to respond to every single message, but I do read everything that you write. And sometimes it sparks a video like this and creates an entire discussion on the channel. So know that I appreciate your contribution. But remember, there are others who need this message, and they're probably in your own gym. Like, share, and subscribe. Keep up the good fight, and stay safe on those mats. Peace.